All righty. Good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting to order since we have everyone present, and it's now 5:30. And we'll begin tonight by an invocation led by Counselor Miller, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Once everybody gets situated, we'll rise and begin. Okay, please rise.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Thank you, Lord, for allowing us to come back to this house to do your business, that it may be pleasing in your sight, that we may agree to disagree in love. Lord, bless those who are here, whatever they are representing, bless their homes throughout this nation. Bless this council that we may be on one accord according to your will. Lead, guide, and direct us as you would have us to go, that we may do what is right and of good will to all people. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Bless the men and women on the battlefield. Bless governments all over the land and country. Thank you, Lord, for our police department, all departments in each municipality, Lord. We just thank you. Lead, guide, and direct us as you would have us to go. These are those blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight we begin our agenda with a public hearing. Since this is required by law prior to the passage of the budget on second reading, we will now have a period for public comment for the budget year ending June 30th, 2022. All righty, seeing no one stepped forward to make comment on the budget, we'll move on to just a quick welcome. I would like to welcome Zaylen and his grandmother, Velvet Boston, from Gray Court Owings Middle School. Zaylen is the new SGA president of Gray Court Owings, and we're very glad to have him and his grandmother here tonight, so please give them a warm welcome. Mr. Administrator, do we have anybody that signed up for public comment this evening? Thank you, sir. The member of the public that signed up is Ms. Bryson Schultz. Ms. Schultz, would you please step forward to address council and limit your remarks to 3 minutes?
I'm going to have to edit some of this out if it's 3 minutes. I thought it was 5. So just stop me, and I'll come back and do the rest another time. My name is Bryson Allen Schultz. I am a business owner and a landowner in the city limits of Lawrence. And the property I own is Bryson Drive, and it is the road that connects Anderson Drive to the Lawrence Elementary School. I'm here today because I have been attending city council meetings as well as the county planning commission meetings, as I am concerned about the number and style of houses being built in Lawrence City and Lawrence County as it relates to the cluster builds like the ones you are set to approve tonight. I've spoken with Mayor Senn at length about my concerns, but still have a few questions for you as a council. My first one, which is probably my most important question, is what is your growth number? I asked Mayor Sin this a few months ago, and would love to hear that council has a plan for when they will stop these cluster builds and how that will take place once you reach your growth goal. COVID-19 has pushed many families out of large, dense cities and into more rural environments like Lawrence. But at what point are we no longer a rural environment? What is your number? What is your number as an individual, and what is your number as a council? Question number 2 may ruffle some feathers, but I tend to be pretty direct, so in my editing, I couldn't come up with a better way to word this. But who do you work for? Do you work for Ryan Homes, or do you work for the city taxpayers of Lawrence? I have not talked to a single person in 4 months and probably over 100 conversations that wants the cluster buildings like the ones that have been approved recently and the ones that are set to be approved tonight. I watched the last meeting online since I was unable to be here, and was a little disappointed at the questioning related to the property at hand for approval. It looks to me like the ordinance agreement will give the builders exactly what they are asking for and may have been designed that way. Not designed to make sure that the homes that are built in Lawrence are what Lawrence wants, but maybe the homes that the builders want. And that is my main concern.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz.
Sure.
All righty. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have proclamations and commendations. The first proclamation I'd like to call the public's attention to is one I did the first day of the month, recognizing June as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. In my law practice and in my personal relationships, I frequently deal with the issues that are raised by Alzheimer's and see the effects that it has on families. I see the effects on those individuals who no longer recognize members of their family and the pain that it causes to members of the family, wives who aren't recognized by their husbands, husbands who aren't recognized by their wives, children that aren't known by their own parents, and see the pain that that causes. And so I believe it is appropriate to call attention with the rest of the nation to Alzheimer's in the month of June. And I hope that we all do our part to support the efforts to pursue research to end that terrible disease. The second matter I do want to call attention to is a Juneteenth observation. Last year, at least to my knowledge, I was the first mayor in the history of the city of Lawrence to actually do a proclamation concerning Juneteenth. But Juneteenth recognizes the end of slavery and the passage of the 13th Amendment. And especially in the wake of the George Floyd killing, I felt it was important to show that it was a priority of this city to find common ground where there was common ground to be found, to unite behind the things that are appropriate to unite behind. And the passage of the 13th Amendment, settling once and for all the issue of slavery that so divided our nation from its founding, it was an appropriate thing to mark. And so this month, I would like to follow that up with a second Juneteenth proclamation and observation, showing that that wasn't just a one-time effort, but this is a continuing priority for our city, and I hope it will remain a priority for our city for years to come. So those are my remarks about the matter. I do know that Councilor Sullivan wished to make some remarks regarding Juneteenth, and so I'd ask her to address you all.
Yes, sir. And thank you for those remarks. You're correct. You're the first mayor that observed Juneteenth. You're also the first mayor that recognized Backstreet, and we're grateful for that. As it relates to Juneteenth in the city of Lawrence, some of the information that I've learned concerning Silver Street, Caroline, and East Hampton Street, and also West Hampton Street. Juneteenth is a very important holiday that we should begin to recognize more so than just passing a resolution or proclamation, but observing it as having events to celebrate such a day. In 1865, over 150 years ago now, enslaved people were proclaimed free. There is a historical marker right off of Silver Street that talks about specifically, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional about this, that specifically talks about Juneteenth as it relates to the city of Lawrence. We are right now rezoning areas, and I have no information concerning it. I feel that we are faced in this world with things that we're going to because of lack of respect. As a council member in District 2, I should be aware prior to meetings concerning about plans of rezoning in a historical area that was once called Rich Hill Development. Now, it may not be important to none of you, but it is to me. And there are young people in the city of Lawrence that has a desire to celebrate Juneteenth. And from my understanding, they're not allowed to do it, secondary to ordinances. So we have some issues that we need to address concerning this. I am asking council not for only a proclamation, but to also amend and extend the ordinance dates so they'll be allowed to pop firecrackers on June 19th if they so desire. Secondly, as a council member, I should not have to beg to be on the agenda to make proposals. I am asking council tonight to address this issue. If I go and talk to Mr. Coleman about being on the agenda to addressing council about concerns that I have regarding District 2, I should not have to fight to do that. Because it takes energy from me, and we can't get nothing done on the outside for fighting on the inside. That's all I have to say.
Counselor Sullivan, I do want to make just a couple points. Maybe there's some misunderstanding. To my knowledge, we aren't rezoning anything with regard to the Ridge Hill area. I don't know of anything on the agenda. I don't know that anything's been proposed regarding that. Frankly, I have no idea what you're talking about. With regard to young people not being allowed to celebrate Juneteenth, anyone is allowed to celebrate Juneteenth. And I agree, it would be an entirely appropriate thing for there to be community events to recognize that date, and anyone is free to do that. From what I understand, I haven't been involved in the discussions that have occurred with you directly, obviously, but from what I understand, there was a request by you to shoot off fireworks. But apart from, private citizens are not allowed to shoot off fireworks in the city because of the fire hazard. And so when the city does its fireworks display on July 3rd, just as we will do this year, just as we've done in years past, that's done with the coordination through the state fire marshal's office, and it takes months to plan. And those very detailed plans are approved through the state fire marshal's office, and the reason why they're shot from where they are down in the cemetery is because of the proximity of that location to homes, so that we don't risk fire to dwellings. So I think there may be just some misunderstanding and miscommunication about what the intentions or obstacles are. But I would encourage you and anybody else that would like to recognize and mark the day with special events to do that, and I'd be happy for an invite and take part.
May I respond?
I'm not finished quite yet. As far as not having to beg or ask to be on the city council agenda, I'm not aware of your having to beg. I was made aware of certain demands that were made, and the demands were not procedurally appropriate. Were not in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, which are what this council has adopted to govern its meetings. And so your requests are accommodated, and as you'll see, your name is on the agenda several times.
Mayor
So-
Sin, go
If you'll
ahead.
please allow me to
Go ahead,
finish.
go ahead.
So it is absolutely your right to address council and the public. But all of us have to act with propriety according to the rules and speak at a certain place at a certain time. Because the city council meetings are to conduct public business and not to grandstand. But with that said, we also want to have the ability to have a free exchange of ideas in a democracy with order and mutual respect. And I appreciate your comments here tonight. I hope some of the factual issues I've raised have maybe addressed some of your concerns. If there is further comment, I would ask that you hold those until your reports and communications later in the agenda. All right. Now, moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have a report from our judiciary from Judge Jackie Williams. Judge Williams.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Administrator, City Clerk, Mr. Thompson, ladies and gentlemen from the public. First, I would like to thank you for allowing me, I don't want to be too loud. First, I would like to thank you for allowing me to serve as the first full-time judge for the City of Lawrence. I am excited about the opportunity and the growth for our community. Lawrence Municipal Court has made a few changes since the position is now full-time. I would like to take a moment and highlight a few other changes implemented. The municipal court is now operating, the municipal court has new operating hours. We are now operating bond court Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Weekend and holidays are from 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. unless something needs to change, unless there's different circumstances where we need to change those times. Bond hearings are open based on the needs of the police department and victims. The new court hours are Monday through Thursday. On Monday, it's 9 a.m. Tuesday, it's 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Wednesday, it is 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Thursday, it is 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Fridays are assigned for preliminary hearings and jury trial conferences. The purpose of jury trial conferences is an attempt to resolve cases before the trial begins, which reduces the number of cases that are actually go before a jury. We have jury trial sessions scheduled for the week of June 28th. We are in the process of scheduling jury trials once a quarter or as needed. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for the work you've done in regards to assisting us with getting jury trials started. You are much appreciated. We are working diligently to catch up on backlog cases from the pandemic, and we have roughly 150 that we need to hear in order to complete that. I accepted this position 2 months ago, and I could not be more proud of the work that the clerk of court, Ms. Valerie McDaniel, who is actually here, has done to assist the city and myself during this transition period. We are working diligently to ensure the municipal court functions as seamlessly as possible. Thank you for allowing me to continue to serve the City of Lawrence. If you have any logistical questions about the courts, I'd be happy to answer them. I encourage each of you to come by and see the progress we've made. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Judge. And I will just say, we appreciate you taking the reins so firmly with the judiciary, and we've already seen tremendous results in the case backlog and the way things are being run since you've been over there. You have our thanks. All righty. Now, we do have a couple matters that Councilor Sullivan wished to address, a city redistricting committee and a request for a neighborhood grant. Councilor Sullivan.
Yes, sir. It is brought to my attention that redistricting we should be meeting for such a task to begin this process. At this time, I have not received any information concerning when we will be meeting, concerning those, any workshops or any type of education or any personnel so that they can inform us and guide us through this process. I am tonight requesting that council develop a committee to begin, or a workshop, so that we can begin discussing redistricting for the City of Lawrence. Councilor Miller, do you have any interest in redistricting?
Yes, I do. And I do think information that we received tonight. But I think that the council members should first be informed of everything of the, once we receive the census, or before we receive the census, to organize ourselves as to what the redistricting is going to entail. Because the city, the council, we the one to approve the redistricting. So therefore, I think we, rather than a committee, we need to meet to get the understanding of what all the redistricting will entail and what all we got to do to inform the people.
Councilor Cassandra Campbell, do you have any interest or any response to this request?
I am absolutely interested in redistricting. I do agree with Councilor Miller that I first need to be informed on how the process works, but I absolutely am interested.
I am as well. And I may use the wrong terms. It may not be committee because we've never been in a workshop concerning redistricting. So I am in agreement with both of you as well. Ms. Sarah, Councilor Sarah Lattimore, do you have any response to this?
Oh, yes, I do. Because I think it's very, very important that we do, because we're having so much coming up, so much building done in different areas, and it's connecting to what we already have. And we want to know where it's going. We want to know who it's going to, because we want to know that this is going to be part of me, too. And when it moves out of where we are now in the district that I am, making me smaller, that don't work. We need to do it properly and evenly for every district, and not just one, all of them.
Mayor Sin, do you have any information pertaining to the redistricting, any information pertaining to when we will begin meeting for such a task?
We've already contacted personnel in Columbia, the state demographer that organizes that process and helps cities through it. So we're sort of waiting our place in line. That's been done in coordination with Lynn West, our elections director. As far as the census goes, I don't think we're expecting census results, if memory serves, until something like September. So there's really nothing we could be doing more than we've done at this point. It's sort of fine to have a meeting to discuss the process, but we don't have any actual data, and typically that data is organized with and analyzed with the help of the state demographer, who's able to take the information once it's received from the census and help the redistricting process and make sure that it complies with state and federal law and the constitutional law that governs redistricting. So that was a long answer to a short question, but essentially we've done our part to this point, and we await further information.
Thank you for that enlightenment. I was not aware of that. Councilor Lara, do you have any response to this?
Not really. I mean, we've been through this before. It's a fairly painless and simple process. We get the census data, we talk to the state, we go through this, we talk about it, we vote. It's not hard. We send it off to, I think it's to DOJ. I think it goes to Department of Justice or whoever, so that it's, and to my knowledge, we've never had anything come back.
Okay.
They look for improprieties, they look for anything weird, so it's a pretty simple process, so it's not real difficult.
Okay. Councilor Bolt?
Well, as I sit here and listen, I agree with each and every one of you. You know, this is something like we have gone through several times since I've been on council. And we all know that over a period, it's done once every 10 years, I think. And so surely there are some areas that needs redistricting, and well, I would say all of it's going to be needing to redistrict, especially with the growth, as Ms. Bryson, talked to Ms. Schultz, I'm sorry, as she pointed out, because we are expecting a lot of growth. And it's going to involve not only one council, one side or one ward, it's going to affect the whole city. Because I know where she's talking from, it's going to really affect my side of the town. And I know it's going to affect some of y'all's side.
Yes, sir.
And to get those things equally divided, sure, we're going to have to do some redistricting. And we just have to work through it, work together. And I'm like Ms. Sarah said, it should be divided up as much as equally as possible to get a good picture.
Right. Okay, thank you guys for that, response. As it relates to the request for a neighborhood grant, I've been working on a proposal for low-income and dilapidated homes in the city of Lawrence. We are in the middle of working on new development homes, but we also have a lot of homes that are in need to be rehabilitated. In a recent work session we had, I posed a question about having a location to coordinate resources for grants that are already in existence. And I didn't get a response concerning it. My question tonight is, I would like to see council work on homes in the city of Lawrence for low-income personnels by coordinating the weatherization program, the 501 grant from USDA, and also support from the city of Lawrence where the homes lack the remaining finances. So tonight I'm just giving information concerning a summary of it, and in July I will have a completion of the adopted proposal that I would like you to review. That's all I have.
All righty, Counselor, thank you. I do just have a few quick remarks tonight. I want to begin by recognizing Jacob Tillman. Jacob, if you don't mind, stand up so I can show you off. Jacob is our intern this summer from PC. He's a junior at PC, and we're glad to have him working, helping us organize a bunch of city stuff. And one of the first things he's been working on already is helping the public better get to know our employees. And so we're communicating with employees to be able to sort of get that information out and help the public understand that City of Lawrence government isn't government. It's your neighbors and friends. So thank you, Jacob. Glad to have you. Tonight, on the agenda, we will proceed with final consideration of the litter ordinance that will bring us in line with the City of Clinton and Lawrence County. And I would like to give due recognition and thanks to our County Council Chairman, Brown Patterson, for his diligent work on this. He and I and the City Administrator for Clinton and GP McClear from Fountain Inn and Mayor Celestine Jones and Gray Court have worked together with the Chamber to try to really show Lawrence County that we've had enough with the litter situation and that we stand united to address that. And so I hope we'll move forward tonight with final approval of that. You may have seen in the news that our next door neighbors here, the Midtown Building, has received the Gaines Yance Rehabilitation Award. This is a statewide award that's given by South Carolina Main Street organization, and it recognizes excellence in creative rehabilitation and revitalization of a historic property. The Midtown Building was the first building to have a full-scale renovation in roughly 20 years in our downtown. At this point, we now have 4 projects, including the Echo Theater, which are undergoing massive renovation. And I had the opportunity, Reverend Kennedy, to stop in earlier this week and see the tremendous work that's being done at that facility. It truly is impressive. But between the Echo Building, the Swafford Building on Lawrence Street, the old Palmetto Bank, where Edward Jones and and the Artist Coop is located, and the John Graham Building on the south side of the square, we have a level of private investment and renovation that's going on which we haven't seen in literally decades. And I want to once again remind the public and thank council that that's due in part to our adopting the International Existing Building Code, which made some of these projects feasible because there's a building code that is doable. I want to remind the public at this time that we do have an art competition going on. This is something I started a couple years ago to encourage the young artists of Lawrence to spend their summer after they get out of school for Lawrence District 55 as you continue in school to do a little artwork, and hopefully our young artists will submit pieces for that competition, and the winner will hang in my office, and we can show off my mayor's office here, and hopefully we can show off the talent of our young people in this community, and show that we are a community that cares about the arts as well. I want to inform council that we have received funds from Prisma. Gary can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's in the amount of $27,000 for their use of the Ridge as a vaccination center. So we were able to not just lose use of that facility, not only was it able to be utilized for a good purpose in bringing vaccines and saving lives, but that has also brought funds into the city. This past month, I have hosted a group of upstate mayors in the city of Lawrence. I was pleased to do that, and I'm pleased to report there's some jealous mayors in the upstate. We're proud of what we have going on here, and it's nice when you see other folks that are sort of taking note of all the great things that we have happening. We continue to have discussions with others regarding multifamily housing. While single-family homes and new neighborhoods are important, it's also important that we have multifamily housing for workforce housing. The struggle that we see across the nation today, at least in part, is that you have folks who have good, well-paying jobs, but maybe they don't have enough for an initial down payment, or they don't have credit that would allow them to qualify for a loan. But we don't want them to be stuck in a situation where they're in substandard housing. And so one of the ways where Lawrence has lagged behind in recent years is in the building of multifamily housing. And making sure that we have a place for everybody in our community means that that kind of workforce housing is important. And so I hope to continue those discussions so that we can bring that kind of apartment housing not only to our workforce, but to students, to recent college grads, a variety of folks. I'm glad to report that planning is underway for the 20th annual Squealing on the Square. Last year would have been our 20th year, but unfortunately it was canceled due to COVID. But this year we plan to have Squealing back and back with a bang. And so as it is the 20th year, it's time for some reimagining, some creative and fresh thinking, and we hope to work together with Main Street to give that festival a new look. And the conversation we had today, I would sort of say we're going back to the basics, and I think it's something everybody should look forward to and we'll get a kick out of. And the last note that I just want to make to you is we have a tremendous public celebration for Independence Day coming up soon. Please mark your calendars for July 3rd. It's been July 3rd every year. It's July 3rd this year. Nothing has changed in that regard. No matter what you may have heard, we will have fireworks and plenty of them. But we are bringing some new elements to this year's Independence Day celebration, and we plan to announce those on the 22nd. We'll be holding a press conference about that at that time. But save the date, make plans to be here. Suffice to say, we're doing something in Lawrence that's special, and the closest city that's done anything like it is the city of Charlotte. And we plan to have a lot of fun. It's going to take I hope it takes the town by surprise in a wonderful way. So those are all the comments I have. Moving on to the council business for the evening. We have the consent agenda of approval of the agenda for tonight and the minutes for our May meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion, we approve the agenda for tonight and the approval of the minutes of last month.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Matter is approved. All right, moving on to old business, we have our city administrator presenting second reading of ordinance 5-21-01, which is the budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Coleman.
Our new budget for fiscal year ending 6/30/2022 is $7,652,100. And of that $7,002,100 is general funds, $650,000 is hospitality. There have been no changes to the budget since the last reading, since first reading. It is balanced, and there's no tax increase, and it includes at least a 50-cent per hour raise for all employees, and certain others get on a upward scale, bring them more in line with their peers.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Do I hear a motion to approve on first or on second reading?
We'll make a motion, we approve second reading ordinance 5-21-01, the budget for the fiscal year June 30th, 2000.
We have a motion from Councilor Martin and a second from Councilor Miller. Is there any discussion? Well, I would just like to say to the press here gathered, I saw a wonderful headline this week that the council had county council had passed their budget with no tax increases, so I look forward to the same positive coverage in the press. No, in all seriousness, I really do appreciate the hard work of council in our budget workshop, and particularly the hard work of our city administrator in preparing this year's budget and making sure that not only we cover the basics and invest strategically, but those strategic investments include competitive pay for our employees. Thank you all. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor of passage on second reading of ordinance 5-21-01, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no.
No.
Budget passes with Councilor Sullivan dissenting. Next, we have our city attorney presenting ordinance 5-21-02 for second reading of the litter control ordinance. Mr. Thompson.
All right, thank you. All right, we had the first reading last month and went over the ordinance in some detail. As the mayor mentioned earlier, Lawrence, Clinton, and the county have an identical ordinance, and I believe the same adequately covers the situation we are trying to reverse here, and it's a solid ordinance. We've made no changes in the ordinance since the last meeting, so we would need to have a motion, second, and a vote on this to have it finalized. I would just say that the subject matter of this ordinance is all well and good in the written form, but I think this is something that you all can do, is to try to win the minds and hearts of the people of our community that throwing trash out on the road is not in the best interest of them or our city. And we need to win people over mentally and otherwise that this is not in the best interest of anybody. So it's sort of a two-pronged thing. You have the ordinance in the written form where you can impose monetary punishment, but I think going along with that, we need to try to convince people that that's not acceptable conduct. And that's something that needs to never even come to mind, to throw something out of your car on the highway or drop something while you're walking along. That's just my thinking on it. But I would like, if you see fit, to move forward on this motion, this ordinance, and finalize it tonight, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. At this time, I'll entertain any motions.
I make the motion that we accept, the proposal. In the meantime, I'm very excited about the announcement and joining with the other municipalities and everybody around, and the announcements that's coming up with the county and Fountain and everybody coming together, which I think would be nice if everybody come out to that. But I make the motion that we accept.
And second.
We have a motion from Councilor Miller and a second from Councilor Lattimore. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir, that's discussion. I think we need an ordinance, but also, in District 2, specifically on Spring Street, that's a location. I sent an email out to all the council members probably about 3 weeks ago concerning the issue that they don't have trash cans throughout that apartment development on the outside. And they do not currently have anybody working as a maintenance personnel. So that is a issue that we have as well pertaining to the litter. We need to have trash cans placed there, in addition to passing this ordinance.
Counselor Sullivan, thank you for raising that issue. I believe it was explained to you that that facility is administered by the Federal Housing Authority, and the City of Lawrence doesn't have the responsibility or jurisdiction to provide those trash cans or maintenance workers that would maintain them. That is the responsibility of the federal government.
Yes, sir, I am aware of that, but there was
Thank you.
no explanation from that. And secondly, regarding that, we're the personnel that they're under our jurisdiction. We're in the city of Lawrence, and they're an apartment complex here. So therefore, as a mayor and council, it's not fitting for us to discuss them having trash cans in their facilities?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I have one.
Counselor Loudon.
Concerning motor vehicles, sitting in everybody's yard they're not using, they're just sitting there rusting. How do we go about getting these people to take care of their property, to get these where they belong? If they're not gonna use them, they should be put somewhere where somebody can, couldn't take them to the dump house where they put the truck, put the cars, to the dump place where they put cars at. But-
Counselor Lattimore, I'm glad you brought that up. While it's not addressed under this ordinance, we do have a separate ordinance that handles abandoned vehicles, and I'll give due credit to our Building and Zoning Department and Jeremy Hudson and Brandon Roberts for their work in cracking down in that regard. The number of derelict and abandoned cars that has been tagged recently is exponentially more than has gone on in previous years. Again, that wouldn't be covered under this, but we do have an ordinance on the books that covers that. It's just a matter of enforcement, and we're trying to do our part in that regard.
Mayor Sand, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question or statement concerning what Alicia said about the housing project up there. I think that we should discuss or meet or ask the resident manager or up at the housing project as to what we can do, because it's not that bad, but it's bad to see how they have to go to the main dumpster. And I guess that's the way they have it set up like that. But if we can do something and we can sit down to talk to her about it, to see what the problem is with her tenants. But at this point here, it is a lot of trash up there, a lot of dumping, but it's not our responsibility because they don't have a maintenance man, and I'm quite sure it's in their budget, but that's her problem. But as far as our problem is concerned, to keep it clean and neat, what is put out there, whoever pick up their dumpster, that they are emptied weekly or bi-weekly, however it is, and try to help it keep it clean.
Thank you, Councilor
Mayor
Miller.
Sand, okay, so the Hilltop and the Glen is federal authority, right? So the old projects, I have a document that states the city of Lawrence has responsibility for that place as well.
I don't know what you're talking about. The city of Lawrence is technically, this is sort of getting into weeds, and so it's not really proper from a procedural standpoint to discuss it with regard to this litter ordinance. But the technical ownership of the property sits with the city of Lawrence, but the property is
I thought so.
administered through the Federal Housing Authority. And the Federal Housing Authority has the budget and the responsibility of administering those properties. And so it is not we don't have the ability, though the land is held in legal title by the city, to administer that in the place of the federal government, much less the budget.
So the question is, does the city of Lawrence have any ownership over that property, yes or no?
I believe
Yes
I
or
just
no?
said it. We do have
Yes or no,
technical
please,
legal
sir.
ownership, but that's not the question of who administers it and who would be responsible for trash cans and maintenance personnel. But I would be happy to discuss that matter with you and bring you up to speed at a later date if you would like. Is there any further discussion regarding the litter ordinance 5-21-02?
Well, Mayor, this is a good ordinance. I just hope that we can enforce it. And it's not just another ordinance on our books to say we got a litter ordinance. It's gotta have some teeth in it so we can find some people that's bringing this stuff into the city and dumping it. And if we see anyone, we need to get tag numbers or a name or something other, because they're still bringing a lot of litter into the city. And we got to have some teeth in this to be able to enforce it. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Council. Is there any further discussion on this ordinance? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor of passage of 5-21-02 on second reading, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, no. And the matter passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Moving on to our Building and Zoning Director, Jeremy Hudson, who will be presenting a subdivision project for Lawrence Station.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The Lawrence Planning Commission met on Tuesday, May 11th, and approved the proposed plan for Lawrence Station subdivision, which is 153 homes. We're just asking the city council to vote on that approval of that subdivision.
Before y'all vote, would you let Bryson finish her comments or no?
I'm sorry, Ms. Welch, you're out of order. Do you have any further comments?
No, sir.
All righty. We do have a proposal that's before council. Are there any motions concerning the proposal?
Is this the one coming off of Church Street? Which one is this?
It's East Main Street and East Farley.
Oh, East Main Street.
Yes, sir.
And who's the contractor on this one?
The owner, well, the developer is East Main Street Properties, and Ryan Holmes is the builder.
What size lots are these gonna be on?
But if I may, just so we're procedurally correct, we can have discussion, but we need a motion.
I'll bring the motion up so we can get it up for discussion, that we approve this, so we can bring it up for discussion. This is first reading, or this is second?
Because this is an approval, our city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong.
This is approval coming from,
Correct.
Planning Commission. They've already approved.
All right. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Counselor Bolt?
Okay, I was just kind of concerned about, we talk about houses, and we got a bunch of them that's wanting to be built. And I think some of them are getting too small and too close together, me personally, and I think we're trying to put too many houses in some areas, with everything we've got going on. And, I guess I would just like to question, what size lots were these? Did we get
Well,
that?
the council previously approved 50-foot lots in the R3 zone. These lots are going to be just around 53 to 55-foot widths. So they're above the minimum.
And at that time, we also discussed the foundation, like the slab, we tried to think on it.
There will be slab homes.
There
Yes,
will be
ma'am.
slab houses. Yeah, man.
Ms. Miller?
Just a question that I'm gonna ask you, since she wanted to speak. Can we not listen to what she got to say?
The time for public comment has expired.
Okay.
But I would ask that, if, Madam Clerk, would you mind providing each member of council a copy of these?
Jeremy, how many lots are in here?
153.
How far?
I see it, I see it.
Between 53 and 55 feet.
Nope.
I see, is this Century?
Shows.
These are lot sizes. Fixing to show the lot sizes.
Councilors, I'd like to draw your attention to this detailed map. I'll show it to the public here. This is a plat that was presented to, by the North Lawrence Realty Company at the turn of the last century. It is for a neighborhood that was eventually built, as you can see from the GIS map that accompanies it, along North Harper, and it includes Watt Street, Cora Street, Camp Street. Sits presently at the edge of the city limits. I believe it's in
It is.
Ms. Campbell's district, or ward, I should say. Plats, by nature, just have lines of streets with boxes, and they can look scary. This map may look a little imposing. As you can see there, the lot widths, well, you may not be able to see very clearly, but in the top of each of these lots, you'll see 50 written. Right here at the very top. Because these are 50-foot lot widths, which is actually smaller than what's being proposed. And as opposed to green space and public common areas and playgrounds and streets that wind so that they are more aesthetically pleasing, this map, or this plat, lays off a neighborhood that was designed to maximize the number of houses that you could fit on a particular plot of land. But today, as you can see, there's some lovely homes from our residents that sit in this neighborhood. These pictures are current as of today. I bring this to your attention because I think this stands to show that the city of Lawrence has been building houses on lots of this size for more than 100 years. I don't know that anybody goes through this neighborhood and has a complaint and says, gosh, those lot sizes are just too small. This is a standard size for a Lawrence house in the city limits. It further concerns me that there is sort of a dangerous byproduct which may come from scaring folks about things like lot sizes. Because what these lot sizes allow is for first-time home buyers, for people who are wanting to realize the American dream and own a piece of their own land for the first time, but maybe don't have the resources to buy a half-acre lot and a $400,000 house. But there has to be a place for them too. This isn't some effort to pad the pockets of a national home builder. This is in line with other communities, and in fact is in line with our own community and the houses that have been built here for 100 years. And if we want workforce housing, then we got to have a place for them to live. It's a matter of accessibility. It's a matter of whether we care for the least of these, including the people who are just entering the home market. And I full-throatedly reject the snobbery and condescension that these aren't the kind of homes that we would want to live in, therefore we cannot have them in our community. There has to be a place for everybody, and this isn't for everybody. But just because it may not be for me or you, doesn't mean it's not for some. And the fact that you see these houses of this type being built in other communities shows that there is a market for it. Now, smart planning is absolutely the right thing to do. Intelligent community design is absolutely the right thing to do. Imposing requirements like sidewalks, just as this neighborhood has, and street lighting, just as this neighborhood has, and green spaces, just as this neighborhood has, and playgrounds, just as this neighborhood has, and all the other things that are included in this plan are absolutely the right thing to do so that we make sure we have livable communities. But there's a difference between smart community planning and just saying no. Let's get real about the numbers. The city of Lawrence hit its high water mark in population in 1980. We had right around 10,000 residents. Right now, we're knocking on the door of 9,000. We got 1,000 more residents to add in this city before we even break even from where we were in 1980. Where are they going to live? Those are the facts. Those are just facts. I apologize if I seem impassioned about this, but we have just barely broken the door on growth for the first time in 40 years. There has not been one shovel of dirt moved on building a new neighborhood yet. Are we going to immediately slam the door shut? What does that say about our community?
Very well said.
I hope council will be thoughtful, and I hope that we work with our planning commission very closely to make sure that growth is thoughtful and controlled, that it does not get out of hand, that we do not sacrifice the standards of our community and livability for profit. But when we see people that are trying to do it right, it is important to be aware of motivations of why some might discourage growth. But let's focus on the common ground of growing well, planning well, growing smartly, realizing, looking at this plat versus the neighborhood as it currently exists, that not all these houses were built. It doesn't just happen overnight. We're not going to have 150 new homes by next week. But we should be planning. Planning, continually planning, because circumstances change, and there is no one number. There can be no one number for growth. There's lots of different numbers. There's school capacity, there's road capacity, there's infrastructure in terms of police capacity and fire capacity and all the things that go into building a community. And you can't just shut off a tap. That does not exist. Well aware of that. We've been discussing it.
So am I. And if I was able to finish my
Excuse me.
you would have understood that more clearly.
You're out of order.
I'm certain that
You're out of order.
someone needs to be.
But at this point, there is work to be done to make up ground from what we have lost over the past 40 years. 40 years. I apologize for the length of my remarks, but I would respectfully urge council to adopt the recommendation of the planning commission, excuse me. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. Ms. Mayor?
No.
Yes.
Council,
Appreciate your statement. I wholeheartedly agree with your statement. There are people in this community, my wife is not originally from this community, and she's made the statement that since she's been here 20 years, she has not seen growth. She came from working for the city of North Charleston where growth went crazy, and they planned for it, and it went well. They are now one of the largest cities in South Carolina. People wanted the growth because they want the things that come along with growth. It is very disappointing to hear people say, we want this, we want that. We want the restaurants, we want the amenities, we want the things for our children to do. Well, those things come with rooftops. And it bothers me that people scare the public with, these are little lots. Well, not every development that we're approving has little lots. This one does. This one has small lots. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we can't, but like Nathan said, this is a segment, these houses will be built for a segment of our population. I can assure you, Ryan Holmes didn't come in here and is not gonna spend millions of dollars without knowing what the market is. There is a market for these houses. There is a market in Lawrence. I'm thankful that they see it. Because I know a few years ago, we were begging for anybody to look at Lawrence. Now we're getting looked at and we want to slam the door and say no? No. That's really sad. And it's sad that we have a mentality, I've got mine, I don't want you to have yours. And that's the mentality that I'm hearing.
I have a family member who was recently looking for housing. The family member has ended up in Clinton because we just didn't have anything to offer them. So I too appreciate what you said there.
And what we're seeing with our neighbors down in Clinton is they're telling people no. Are they not? Or making it really hard.
Right.
And that's sad. That's sad. And it bothers me that we scare the public with lot size numbers that are not in reference to reality. You have to have a reference point. You just can't say it's small. Small's not a size. You gotta have a reference point. The other thing that bothers me is I hear 4,000 homes are coming. Okay, 4,000 lots are proposed. In the planning commission, what did they say what did the developer say approximately how many homes will be built a year?
50.
50. 50. So take 3 years if we completely build this one out.
It'll be a 3-year project.
Okay. So the other ones, if we do the same math, we're talking about maybe 1,000 homes in a year or two? I doubt it.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. But I'm not trying to be negative about it.
Right.
But I'm glad that they're out there being proposed. It'll take years for this to happen. And when the time comes, just like in every other town, when the time comes to scale it back, we'll scale it back. That's the way it works. That's what Greenville's doing in certain areas. They scale back certain areas. Try to get a building built downtown right now. I know, I'm in the business. I'm not in the business of building buildings, but I'm in the business of being in construction. It's awful what they put.
The available homes in Lawrence now are staying on the market less than a week.
Yeah.
And they're getting offers well over asking price
So
on any
it's-
home.
It's time as a council that we move this forward. I can tell you this, the majority of the people that I've spoken to, 100% for this. 100%. They're glad to see the development because they know with the development comes other amenities.
Now, this East Main Street property, they will have a HOA, so they will have rules and guidelines for that development.
Well, I thank the mayor for his comments about, because I didn't know it had been that long since growth came to Lawrence. And it has time, and I think it's time for us to look at those who are less fortunate than we are, the lower person on the totem pole as far as becoming homeowners. Because it's everybody's dream, especially young people, dream to own a home one day. And this is a start, so it's comfortable.
Well, it's just not young folks, it's on these smaller lots, it's less maintenance. You may have some older folks that just don't want the upkeep of a property.
Well, we got to start, and this is a good starting point for the.
And just for the record, this property is R3, and it's been R3, so there are no zoning changes at this property. So it was already zoned correctly.
I do want to reiterate for anyone concerned. Planning is good. I think it is way past time for very thorough planning to address the infrastructure. After our last meeting, The county council chairman and I personally attended the school board meeting to say, part of this, the changes that are going on in Lawrence will require changes in our schools. We don't have a solution to offer you, but it's time to start the conversation, like yesterday. This is not a, let's throw caution to the wind, come one, come all, anything you want goes. This is, which is the one thing on the table ahead of us, is larger than our minimum lot size. It is a well-designed neighborhood by any standards, and it meets a need that we have. We'll address the next one when it comes up, which is what the law requires,
Which is the way it works.
one by one,
Planning,
planning.
solid planning.
Any further discussion? I call the question. All those in favor of approval of Lawrence Station following the recommendation from the Planning Commission, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. And it is approved unanimously. Ladies and gentlemen, I may be mistaken, but I think that is the first subdivision the city of Lawrence has approved
As long as I remember.
in 40 years.
Since we've been on council.
Yep.
Finding it, I guess, would be
The,
the last.
the plan, all righty. We have next a recommendation for someone to serve on the planning commission. Mr. Holmes, or
Hudson. There's one opening on the planning commission, and we've had one nomination to recommend to council, or for council to recommend. This person is Barrett Holmes. He is a business owner here in town, and he's doing the rehab next door. He owns some property. His name has come up for that commission. Just need council's vote for that.
thank you, Mr. Hudson. We have a recommendation from, for Barrett Holmes to serve on the planning commission. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion to,
I make a motion, we elect Barrett Holmes, a new member on the Building Zoning Commission.
thank you, Councilor Vaught. Is there a second?
Planning commission.
Okay, Planning Commission. Right.
A whole bunch of seconds there. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor of appointment of Barrett Holmes to serve on the Planning Commission, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And Mr. Holmes is duly elected. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. Moving on to new business, we have Mr. Thompson presenting first reading of ordinance 6-21-02 regarding annexation.
All right, all right, thank you. The owner of a 81.2 acre tract has filed with the city a petition for annexation. You should have that petition attached to the proposed ordinance. Also attached is a plat showing the 81.2 acres, but the aerial photo, which is attached as Exhibit B, is probably a better document to get a grip on where this property is. The owner is asking that it be zoned R3 if it is annexed. I have prepared a ordinance which would, in fact, annex the property to our territorial limits, and it would be zoned R3. we haven't had an annexation for at least 2 meetings. So this one was a little harder to deal with, but because of people spread out around the state that had an ownership interest in the property. But nevertheless, before you now is an ordinance which would, to move on to the next meeting would require a first reading of the ordinance to annex the 81.2 acres as shown on the aerial photograph.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Do I hear a motion to, regarding ordinance 6-21-02?
I'll make a motion.
A motion from Councilor Lowry.
I second.
Well, would you actually like to make the motion?
Make it official? Make
What,
it more.
what do you move to do?
I'm sorry. Make a motion, we approve first reading ordinance 6-21-02. I just did it, Johnny. Yeah, Johnny just said I'd make a motion. You go.
Thank you, sir.
I'm just not the elder statesman, so that's the reason why. You let the elder statesman get away with more.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
What method of petition is this, Mr. Thompson?
It's 100% petition.
Is the 100%?
I would like to add for my own part that part of the advantage to annexation is that the city of Lawrence has certain controls in place with regard to zoning, which the county does not have. And we have a subdivision ordinance that the county does not have. We have the ability to have some say that the county lacks. And so to the extent there are any concerns about the future of the property, there is greater accountability and control in the city limits than without. And if that's not your flavor, then it's additional tax revenue for the city of Lawrence. So. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I call the question. All those in favor of approving ordinance 6-21-02 on first reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And the measure is approved unanimously. That brings us to the end of our agenda for council business. I have no public announcements other than those which I mentioned previously in my remarks. I want to thank those that gathered here this evening and those that made comment and those that are working to engage the public on your spirit of civic mindedness. And no matter how we may feel differently, it is a wonderful thing that Americans are involved in their government and that we are able to disagree agreeably, excuse me. I do have, this just in, I do have an announcement from District 3. Will be holding their community meeting of the new Neighborhood Watch program. We'll have Chief of Police there, and that meeting is at Lucas Avenue Baptist Church at 10 a.m. on Saturday, June 19th. If there's any questions or concerns, please direct those to Councilor Campbell. Councilor, thank you for organizing that.
Yes.
There will be more meetings.
We will, that's right.
There will be more meetings. So, but we ask as many people as possible to come out, to support our very first one. And, each council member, we're probably going to combine, but please come out because this is very important information that we want to get started in the city of Walmart. So please come out. Spread the word.
Ditto.
Thank you, Councilor Miller. At this time, I believe the Mayor Pro Tem is
Make a
called
motion
upon.
that we adjourn.
We have a motion.
Second.
We're adjourned.
If you want me, I'm the foreman.
I think that went pretty smooth overall.
That's not